Stanisci of Candid Frank Live, where you'll find us airing our views here on the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now on Candid Frank Live, joining me is Aaron William Freeland. Hello, Aaron. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you, Frank?
Not bad, not bad. It's oh boy. I got a 94-year-old mother, and we have to put her in a home. Um, it's one of those things where at some point, someone needs to. Uh, this is horrible. The guilt of doing something like that. But sometimes it's best for in this case, an octogenarian. Um, Her friends are dying. She needs to make new friends, and the best way to do it is in that home. I find her, she's at my sister's place right now, and she is spending a lot of time mulling over her friends that have passed away. So I'm hoping bring her to this home. It's in Toronto. I'm hoping that she finds a couple of friends. She makes a couple of friends and has someone to talk to. It's really tough, and it really hurts to have to be in this position for her more than it is for me and our family. But it's tough, and it's the circle of life, right?
Yeah, eventually everybody gets there at some point, so it's understandable. I think my father's trending that way himself, so he's kind of not really anticipating it and trying to do a whole bunch of stuff with the boys in the family to just sort of try to get one last kick at the can in.
Yeah. Well,
it's a hard thing for a lot of us to embrace, mainly because we see our parents as invincible and going to be around forever. But the reality is, the more mature and the older we get, the more the older they get as well. So it's a slow, steady march, and it's never fun to realize that.
Absolutely. But the reason I mention it is for those of you that are going through the same thing. I understand, and I understand better, and it's tough. Don't feel guilty. Try to understand that there's only so much you can do, and if you're not the sibling that's doing it, you have to be sympathetic to the sibling that is doing it. So my sympathies to everybody out there who has to make this tough decision. And to those of you, my friends, who are the ones who are being put in the home, sorry.
Look at it this way. Your meals are taken care of. You don't ever have to go shopping. Matlock is on 24/7. You're set.
I saw a walker today. The tennis ball thing was so much fun. When you see the tennis ball there, it's really brilliant, right? But I saw today too with skis. They had skis on the photo. I'm sorry. Getting old sucks, and being old, trust me, it sucks. But as always, when I get nervous, I laugh, and it's nervous laughter. But in the end of the day, make the best you can of your life, and try to take care of. We got to try and take care of each other, and our parents sometimes we're the only places they can turn. So, anyway, let's go to the CFL and let's talk about the Lions. NDL.
Right. So, looking at the injury reports that are coming out of training camp before we get into it here. In Vancouver, defensive back Delvin Breaux has an elbow injury. He did not participate after being limited on Tuesday, and defensive linesman Woody Barron didn't take part in Wednesday's practice. Now, the Elks list is slightly longer than that, but Deron Cotter is out, Aaron Grimes, Niles Morgan, all sitting out once again on Wednesday. That's today. Toby Antiga was limited again. Tony Washington was back to full practice after coming back from illness. Nick Arbuckle sat out last week's preseason finale, but was a full participant for the second day in a row. So that's a decent start.
The Stamps also have an injury report you've looked into.
Yeah, so everybody is slowly getting back into game shape, and as you know, that always comes with injuries. Bill Stanback was limited on Monday, but is listed as a full participant on Tuesday. Jerner Jones has an injured hand, but is also practicing fully, while Najee Murray did not participate once again. Stampeders looking at a long list here. Eli Buka is out with a hamstring injury. Marcellus Branch is out with a hip injury. Braden Dozier, the calf. Javine Elliott, the groin. Cody Grace, again, the groin. Tyson Middlemost, Jalen Philpott, Charlie Power, Dimitri Royer. The list goes on and on and on. Training camps, man, for some reason this year seem to be a lot rougher on players than they have been in the past.
Absolutely. Bombers and Red Blacks.
Bombers and Red Blacks, here we go. Taking a look at who we've got there. Jackson Jeffcoat was limited due to an ankle issue. Sorry. Les Moruo, Calvin McKnight, and Mike Miller, again, all limited or questionable. McKnight was the only one that was out. Looking at the Red Blacks, Powell, Richards, Romick, and Gillanders were out, and Gosselin was questionable.
Ticats and Riders.
All right, Ticats and Riders. Here we go. Sorry about that. Curiel Brooks did not practice. Game status is listed as questionable. Same with Patrick Nelson. Then on the flip side, the Riders, we're looking at Keon Adams, Jeffrey Onyeka, Michael Pinckney, and Josiah St. John. All are listed as out.
Ticats add offensive linemen to their lineup.
Yeah, so they've added Aaron Johnson to their practice roster. He played 48 games over 4 seasons at South Dakota State. He saw time at both right and left tackle for the South Dakota State University Jackrabbits.
Let's move over to soccer and Canada's Olympic champion women's team, making sure its voice is heard in the battle with Canada Soccer, the CSA in particular.
Yeah, so as you know, the game this weekend was canceled between Canadian men's and Panama due to a pay dispute. Now, the players have released a statement that was covered by TSN's Rick Westhead. Similarly, in the same vein, the women made sure that their issues and their side of the issue was heard as well. And really the problem here is that Canada men's soccer isn't particularly well funded, so athletes tend to get the short end, which is unfortunate, but they're working towards getting that set up and getting that completed.
They're training.
Yep.
They're back, even though we're just at the phase where talks are continuing. So they're back on the field. There was threat that they wouldn't be on the pitch, but they're back on the pitch.
Yeah, and that's a bit of a relief. Now they are going to be scheduling a replacement game for that. I'm still waiting for additional word to come down. Rumor was Honduras, but we'll have to wait and see.
CPL moving to Saskatoon, running back to Saskatoon.
Yeah, so this is good news. The idea of a Canadian Premier Soccer League is always something that's been fascinating, and with teams in Vancouver and Montreal and Toronto, putting something out there in Saskatoon would be a welcome sight as well. Now, the proposed cost for a 5,500 seat facility is around $28 million. They're looking to have that completed. Now, according to the Saskatchewan Regional Economic Development Authority, they'd like to have the potential to expand to 8,000. Prairie Land is supporting the project with over $2 million as cash, as well as hundreds of thousands of dollars in staff support. So There's that as well. And realistically, they could see soccer games by 2024.
Yeah, good for them. And there's a lot. Saskatoon, isn't Regina, but it could be. FIFA investigates Chile's claim over Ecuador player.
So this is something that's been ongoing since late March, early April. But Chile apparently said that it has sent documentation to FIFA showing that Ecuadorian right back Byron Castillo used a false birth certificate, a false statement of age, and a false nationality, and is actually, technically speaking, Colombian, which means that they believe Ecuador should forfeit their games because they used a player who was not documented correctly.
Oh boy. Okay. This one here, Simone Biles in gymnastics. She and other gymnastics athletes are seeking $1 billion plus from the FBI over Nasser. That's the doctor that abused them.
Yep, they're actually trying to sue the FBI for dereliction of duty, in particular because of the fact that There is no dispute that the FBI agents in 2015 knew that Nasser was accused of assaulting gymnasts but failed to act, which left him free to continue to target young women and girls for an additional year after that. Um, Under federal law, a government agency has 6 months to respond to a tort claim filed Wednesday. So we'll see how quickly the FBI gets back to them or if they scramble to cover their own butts on this. But this is a huge case and could mean potentially big repercussions in future. So I'm hoping that the FBI does the right thing here. But if the right thing ends up costing them money, I'm not sure if it's going to happen.
Well, let's always remember, I always talk about innocence until proven guilty, but I also believe in people have an opportunity to speak their truth and be heard. And these are young girls, were not heard. And the FBI should have been listening. Many people feel that way. We're just going to find out whether they're financially accountable for what they didn't do and for how much. That's a pretty big chunk of change there. 1
Yeah,
billion plus. How low?
it's a
Um,
significant chunk of change for sure.
Absolutely. But we can't lose sight of the fact that everybody's complaint should be heard, and everybody who's been complained against should have the right to be innocent until proven guilty. So that full set of values I believe in. Alex Newhook's family gets ready to hit the road as Avalanche advance to the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, so this has been a fun time for a lot of the Colorado players, mainly because some of them have never quite been this far before. One of those is Alex Newhook. Um, Now he's been there. I mean, obviously, other Newfoundlanders have been there before, but it's obviously a little bit more of a hike for them because they're coming from way out on the East Coast. So Paula, his mother, said, "I've been very excited. I've been watching every game, kind of hoping, and their team really pulled it off. It's just jittery over here. It's super exciting." So she's happy to be able to catch some hockey games live.
It's a lot of time zones away from Newfoundland. Is it like a day earlier or 2 days earlier? Is it...
2.5 hours earlier. It's that extra half that always gets me, right?
Who doesn't like a lunchtime hockey game?
Most definitely.
Tampa Bay Lightning, New York Rangers. Lightning holds serve on home ice. They beat the Rangers in Game 4. The Stanley Cup champs are looking like Stanley Cup champs again. The Rangers had them.
Yeah, no, the Rangers had an opportunity to try to put a little more salt on the wound, but unfortunately they couldn't pull through. So home ice advantage has been essentially nullified at this point. I guess the next thing that Tampa needs to do is actually win one on New York's home ice. But because they've been going back and forth like this, everything is even at the end of the day. And it didn't look like that. I mean, they got outplayed in the first couple of games. So it did not look positive for the Lightning, but that's still ongoing.
And goaltending, they were being out goalied, as you would put it,
Yeah. No,
which is
Shesterkin has
which
been
is
absolutely
unusual for them,
fantastic.
right?
Oh, definitely.
Right. So they're usually on the other end of that equation. Here's some really interesting and great news. The Montreal Canadian, have hired hockey star Marie-Philippe Poulin. She is the magician who scores all the important goals for Canada at every international event. If it's an important goal, MPP will score it.
Oh, most definitely. Now, they did actually hire her as a player development consultant. So I'm not 100% sure what that entails, but I do believe that she will be able to take a hands-on approach. Poulin will apparently be joining the team on the ice and in video sessions to help with individual and collective skills. She'll currently be holding the position on a part-time basis while continuing to play. The assumption here is being once she actually does retire from Hockey Canada, she'll then be able to join the Habs full-time.
Pre-Spezza style.
Definitely.
The Montreal Canadiens, not to throw shade on the Montreal Canadiens, last year around this time, they made some pretty horrendous moves, at least socially unacceptable or questionable. I shouldn't say unacceptable because I just finished saying guilt to be proven. They made some questionable decisions that did not reflect well on them. Is this them completing the circle of relife? You know what I mean?
Well, when it comes to that, there has been some discussion concerning that. The Montreal Canadiens did state that Logan Mailloux was not available to be signed, and they weren't looking to sign him, based on the fact that they were still looking for additional receipts that he'd actually done something to follow up on his statements that he made shortly after being drafted. It doesn't appear that any progress has been made on the personal front. So we'll have to see where that comes into play.
Yeah,
But
there
definitely
is.
hiring MPP is something else entirely.
Yeah,
So that's,
it's a different direction for sure, and good for them.
yeah.
The Jets. Kyle Connor wins Lady Bing for gentlemanly conduct.
So as you know, this is one of the slightly more nebulous trophies that usually gets given out. It's very hard to nail down what it is because I mean, most
Bing.
gentlemanly can mean anything from easing your opponent down onto the ice after you turn his lights out to holding open the penalty box door for your opponent. So yeah, it's one of those
Without
things. But
him knowing and skating into it.
now he was tied for the second fewest number of minor penalties during the regular season. He was actually penalized just twice in over 1,700 minutes of ice time. Now that included regular shorthanded shifts and matchup against top offensive opponents. So there's a certain cleanliness, I guess, to his play. Last year's winner, Jacob Slavin, was second in voting. So
And then, of course, there was Austin Matthews, who is not considered now, especially because of that suspension.
yeah, which okay.
I would trade the Lady Bing for upgrading his tools, if you will.
Yes, most
The
definitely.
Boston Bruins fired Bruce Cassidy. This is a guy that, it seemed to me like he got the most out of this team over the past few years.
He definitely did what he could. Charlie McAvoy is now out 6 months after having had surgery. Brad Marchand had double hip surgery. Two or three other those are players. I believe Gralchik was out with an injury. Pasternak went in for surgery as well. So a whole bunch of players that really could have helped them, they were effectively without. And to fire the coach for injuries to the players just seems counterintuitive because it's not the coach's fault they got hurt, you know?
Yeah. But, there's a sense and a feeling that, that every coach that's hired, the saying is they're hired to be fired. And
This
this
is
is what
very
happened,
true.
right? And
Yeah.
this is basically what happened. So Kraken news, they lose goalie Chris Driedger to a torn ACL.
Yeah. So this actually happened in the gold medal game of the World Cup
Yikes.
against Finland. Yeah. Saw the injury where he did go down. It didn't look that bad at first, but he did seem to be hurting. And yeah, as it turns out, he's expected to miss at least 7 months. The only other goalies that they currently have on their roster are Philip Grubauer and Joey Daccord. So that leaves them in a bit of a tight spot, especially seeing as Dreger really brought himself to prominence and made a bit of a name for himself backstopping Canada to the gold medal game. So it'll be an interesting development to see if they do actually go out in the offseason and try to get goalies or stand pat with Grub and Daccord.
As they say, turn the lights out. Good night, Broncos. That's a Walton reference.
I remember that TV show.
Well, right now the Broncos are saying goodnight to previous ownership, and now the Waltons are taking over, not the ones from TV, the ones from Walmart.
Yeah, no, it was after Pat Boland died. The family was trying to resolve their differences in a way that would allow one of them to take over. But as it stands, the Walton Penner family announced late Tuesday that they've entered into a purchase and sale agreement with the children of Mr. Boland to sell that. So Walmart will now become their new owners.
So there was a missing boy in Montana. He was outdoors on his own for 2 days. Again, a young child, a survivalist.
Well, they're I think they're uniquely qualified to sort of survive just because they aren't fully developed yet, so they aren't as much of a threat to wild animals. But yeah,
Okay.
he 3-year-old boy on Friday, Lincoln County Sheriff's got a call from a concerned neighbor about a missing child in the Bull Lake area. That's Riker Webb. Looks like an adorable little kid, a little dirty, not the worst for wear, a couple holes in his socks. But yeah, poor weather conditions on Saturday hampered the search, but he was recovered safe and sound. So that's a relief.
That's great news. Great news.
Yeah.
Canadian soldier who served cannabis cupcakes to comrades. He lost his appeal.
Yes. Now, a military judge sentenced bombardier Chelsea Cogswell to 30 days in jail. And she was to be dismissed from the Canadian Armed Forces. What happened was she actually served cannibal-laced cupcakes to 8 of her comrades during a live fire training exercise in New Brunswick in 2018. So, yeah, it's one of those, why would you do that?
I don't know. MLA calls for budgeting transparency after 125 million for infrastructure project goes unspent.
Yeah, now this is up in Yellowknife. Ryland Johnson was actually looking to find out exactly what had happened here because again, $125 million is a significant chunk of change, and that was mysteriously just not used in 2021, 2022. So they had to try to figure out what's going on there. Obviously, they need to get to the root of that. So,
Labor Board dismisses complaint by a person saying the union didn't stand up for their unvaccinated members.
Yeah, no, this was a person who worked for the Saskatchewan Health Association and as a CUPE member. But after getting legal advice and looking at decisions in other jurisdictions, CUPE decided not to fight against the Saskatchewan Health Authority's proof of vaccination policy. So they said, yeah, no, none of the allegations disclose facts that derived to a finding of arbitrary, discriminatory, or bad faith conduct by the Saskatchewan Health Authority. So it's plain and obvious it has no reasonable chance of successfully demonstrating that CUPE had breached Section 659 of the Act. So,
Toronto developer plans to tackle housing crisis by building 4 towers of mainly affordable units. What's
mainly affordable?
1%?
Yeah, I mean that's the key word right there, right? But yeah, this is something that needs to be addressed. Now, Spotlight has partnered with Habitat for Humanity, Wood Green Community Service, Black North Initiative, and Trillium Housing to try to develop this. And they're looking at an area near Lawrence and Black Creek Drive. Currently, it's a 3.5-acre strip mall plaza. But
I know the exact location.
Yeah,
The
and they're planning to have.
store.
Yep, and they're planning to have about 1,400 units there, and it'll be about 1 million square feet.
Yeah, and they just built that Eglinton line there, which is easy access for that too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so it makes sense. Hopefully, it works out the way they're planning. Hours-long police standoff in Victoria ends with one man in custody. What did he do?
Well, he ended up in hospital for non-life-threatening injuries and a mental health assessment. Following an hours-long standoff with police on Quadra Street Tuesday afternoon, there was a man who was said to be at risk of becoming violent. The man refused to speak to himself and then barricaded himself inside his unit. Members of the Victoria Emergency Response Team used a flashbang and irritant gas to gain entry to the unit, and then the man came at the officers with improvised weapons. So that didn't end well. Rubber bullets were used, and the case is currently under investigation.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm looking here. Elon Musk says Twitter thwarting spam data requests.
Yeah, so he's trying to push Twitter into selling to him, and additionally trying to tank their price so that his offer of $52.40 a share looks more generous. But he's saying basically they're stonewalling me. That can't happen. You're violating the agreement.
Did you see the McConaughey speech?
I did. That was very powerful. Very, very powerful stuff.
Pretty interesting 20 minutes.
Yeah, most definitely.
I what was most gripping is how he was able to help us to see and imagine how horrendous these parents had to witness their children, how horrendous it was. Not being able to make out what your kid looks like. I mean, can you imagine? And, pointing out all the obvious stuff like dreams and stuff like that. And they needed a green pair of Converse with a heart on the right toe to identify a child. Please. I mean, we've got to, our friends in America have to figure this out. If they don't know that 18-year-olds are too young to buy weapons of war, then when will they figure out how to fix the problem? That's an obvious problem. That's a first rounder for sure. No.
No, the first thing they have to do is acknowledge that there's a problem. The problem is they don't want to acknowledge it. They're trying
Well,
to play the ostrich here and hope that the problem just goes away on its
well,
own.
because
And
it
it just doesn't
has,
work like that.
because it has in the past, right?
Yeah.
Just deflect, and wait. It's too bad. Thanks,
Yep.
Aaron, for this.
Thank you, Frank.
Okay, for Aaron William Freeland, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Candid Frank Live, Aaron, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Candid Frank Live and other news, entertainment, and sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Ciao for now.